All right, everybody, back with another one. This is a Time Pilot board set. What I understand about this, see right here, I've already got it labeled, Time Pilot. BF is the initials of the owner of the board. But what I am told is sounds are scratchy, out of pitch, and are too fast. So the good news is we have sound. So it's just finding. This has some 4066s on it that are probably used to generate noise, and those could be funky. This has a couple rams on it. It has a Z80. I'd like to pull this Z80 and put a socket there so that I can use my fluke and make sure I can do everything that the Z80 is supposed to do with the RAM and the ROM and all that. Just be kind of fun. Same with this board. You got a Z80 soldered in right here. And Konami went a little midway with customs. They got custom chips going on in here. And some of these are nasty, dirty. I'd like to pull these out and clean them up. Like that one, the legs are nasty on these things. So those could be cleaned up. The boards can be cleaned up. This has a couple 2148s right there for 8-bit RAM. Got some prom chips. It's a lot like kind of reminds me of a Nintendo board, to be honest. The sockets are what Nintendo used. Kind of nice, thick circuit boards. It kind of looks and feels like a Nintendo board. So, but the good thing is it doesn't use any of them stupid ECL chips. So it's better than a Nintendo board. Better than a Donkey Kong board anyway. But yeah, let's... this has an op amp. 741 op amp too. That could be... there's definitely some things to look at. And as far as the speed being wrong, that could be a clock problem. Our clock is too fast. I don't know. We can look into all of that as we go. But I'm going to have to make a harness to hook up to this guy. And this plugs into right here when the board's together. I believe that this is grabbing 5 volts and ground from this board. So I'll have to make something to plug into this. Which, that's no big deal. I can find something. I can find something that'll plug into there. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to it. I'm gonna put together a harness and see what we get. Upon doing a little inspecting of this board, what is that? If we flip this guy over, it is this guy right here. The LS74. That's going to have to be removed. I kind of want to look at the schematic and see what this is involved with. This 74 here. That is terrible looking on the back side. It's got to be taken out and cleaned up. So I don't see any other kind of hackery. Yeah. I don't like that. I'll tell you that right now. That's got to be cleaned up. I think I'm going to remove the solder from these pins, clean it, and resolder it. I don't know if that's just a cap. There's some nasty work, it looks like. Only a couple of things though, so it's not terrible. It's very fixable. This has got to be removed, cleaned up, and I'll probably just replace that chip. And then I need to clean up these solder joints that are on this guy right here. Boy, that's just ugly. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to doing that kind of stuff first. Before I haven't even started making my harness yet, I'm just gonna clean up some things. Let's do that first. Okay, this is cap that was in the board. You can see it's kind of broken. It ain't looking very healthy. It was over here, 1,000 microfarad. I removed the pot. I didn't really need to, but I did. And I'm going to replace this cap. I checked for shorts. There's a series of tantalum capacitors here. And I just made sure that none of them were shorted. Because that's a problem. I cleaned this up. I'm going to resolder it. Let's see. I'll resolder it nice and clean. And that'll be good for this guy. Now this board, this area is a mess, but it's better than it was, and I will put a new chip in there. I got it cleaned up as good as I'm going to get it, so I'll put a new 7474 in there and repopulate everything, and then we'll start our troubleshooting. Okay, so now I will be ready to put this thing back together and make a harness for it. I cleaned these customs. You can see how nice and shiny those are now. That one, this one, and this one. And those are the customs that are basically the same thing as the Midway Galaga customs. They get really tarnished. The legs are made of like a silver alloy. So what I do is I just put them in a little container and pour some Tarnex in there and kind of swirl it around, and they come right clean. I don't even have to touch the legs. There's no scrubbing. You just put them in Tarnex and kind of swirl it around, and it cleans the legs. You don't even have to touch them. So looking great. I replaced this cap. It's a 1,000 microfarad as well as this cap. I got the pot in there. I've got this thing soldered neatly. And on this board, I've got this guy replaced. And I'll show you the back side. It's as good as that is going to look. But it's better than it was. So, alright, I am ready to go ahead and put together a harness and try to get this thing fired up. Okay, I'm making a little bit of progress. I am going to unplug this because it's annoying. This ROM was not right. I took the graphics ROMs off the board and I read them into my reader and compared them against ROM ident. And this one came up unrecognized. So I burnt the proper ROM here. And I'm getting more. I'm kind of getting the gist of the outline of the game there, which is good. And if I just kind of mess with this chip in the socket, look at that. We got bad sockets. So what I'm going to do, since one of them's bad, I'm replacing all of them. I'm not taking a chance with it. One of them's bad. I'm going to replace every one of them. So, or maybe it's just these guys. Maybe it's the customs. These kind of go in there pretty good. I don't know. I think I'll start with the custom chips. I'll replace the sockets for the customs, and these two guys. And see, we got it. Now it's up on there now. You got some game going on now. Pretty cool. Time pileup. Then after I get this board all squared away, then I got to figure out why it's kind of randomly getting nonsense noise on through the speaker. Find out what that's all about. But yeah, let me go ahead and get this guy good to go with some new sockets for these guys. I'm going to start with these three. Because these guys, they go down in there pretty good, you know. The EPROMs go down in there pretty good, but these just kind of, I think these need a better fit. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dual wipe socket for these guys. Okay, I got all the old sockets out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're all right here. Those 6 guys right there. There's my new ones that are going in. All right. Came out really good. No problem. These are nice boards to work on. Sturdy. Pads don't come off easily. Nice sturdy boards. But yep, I'm going to kind of wipe this. I had some deoxit sprayed in there. It's just, I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. Put the new sockets in it. Should be good to go. Okay, the socket replacement is done. This one, this one, this one, this one, and these two have all been replaced. And we have the game nice and solid on the screen. I'm still waiting for it to flake out with that sound. You hear that? I got it plugged back in. I got the speaker plugged back in. I'm just waiting for it to flake out. I'm wondering, because obviously this board interfaces with this board to cue sounds, right? So I'm wondering if fixing the socket issues on this board fixed the sound issues on this board. It just remains to be seen. I just got to sit here and let it run. Normally, this thing would have flaked out already. It just starts going, making this weird noise, and it's pretty annoying. But it hasn't done it yet. I'm just going to continue to let it run. I'm going to, you know what I need to do is I should coin this thing up. I'm going to pull the pin up out, the pin out up, and pull out the pin up, the pin out. Let's coin this thing up and see what happens. And this is the sound I'm talking about. Just in demo mode, it's just flaked out and did that, so. Who knows? Okay, well, I'm going to have to look at the schematic of the soundboard, see how this thing is queued up. It's got to just have data lines coming up through this cable. I got to see how this thing's interacting with this. I need to see if this is falsely triggering this or if this has a fault on it that's triggering itself, basically. So let's take a look at that. I'm back checking out Time Pilot. I got my monitor adjusted a little bit better. This monitor's finicky to adjust to this game. The board, the colors are good on the game. It's just, this monitor's a little flaky. But I think I've isolated, I think I found my bad chip that causes this thing to just start flaking out and going blah, and making noise. I replaced this 741 amplifier just because, I mean, why not? They're dirt cheap. I thought it was either going to be one of these analog parts. It's either going to be one of these analog parts, one of these guys, or one of these 4066s. And I think it's this guy right here. Right here, this is giving me a signal right here, and it's not supposed to be. If I ground it out, so this thing I think is just giving me randomness. I think what I'll do is I'll look at the schematic and I'll follow this leg, see what this leg is connected to. Because it is definitely, that's the sound right there. If I ground it out, it goes away. That's definitely it. But it's the fourth leg down, so it's actually, what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's pin 12 of this guy. So I'm going to look at the schematic and find out what that's connected to. Is it an output? It's an input? It's probably an output. So we'll see. Maybe I'll even jump one of these on there and see what they do. Well, let's check some stuff out. Okay, I am looking at Time Pilot here. And it looks absolutely perfect. And you know what? I've had it running for about, I don't know, 10 minutes. And it hasn't done that flake out with the sound at all. Remember under the clouds there was like a flakiness under all of the clouds? Okay. Now there's no flakiness under the clouds. It looks perfect. Sounds perfect. What I did was I went and I bought a 2-foot cable so that I could lay the boards out. I wanted to be able to lay the boards out like this. So I bought a 2-foot 40-pin single drive computer cable to interconnect the two boards. I made a 5-volt line from my power supply so that I didn't have to worry about hooking this guy up to that part of the board. I could just run it right off my power setup so I can lay the boards out. That's the only thing I did. So my guess is this guy right here is no good. Yep, so I'm going to try to clean it up. I'm going to try to clean it really good and see if that will fix it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put a new cable on it. But you can see with this new cable I put on there, this thing's perfect. Works perfect. So nice. So what I have done to this, I went ahead, I replaced these 3 guys. I replaced these 3 4006 chips. New cap, new cap. I put a new op amp in it. I cleaned up the solder on the back and I reflowed and made the solder look really good. On this board here, I replaced this socket. I cleaned these chips too, and I replaced the socket here and here. Cleaned the legs on those chips really good. I had to burn 2 new ROMs. This chip was cleaned and the socket was cleaned. This chip was cleaned and the socket replaced. The socket was replaced, I should say. And I replaced this socket too. Cleaned the legs on those chips. That's pretty much it. And it's going to need a new cable. And that'll get this one good. Time Pilot. Yeah, no more flaking out. All right, good to go. I'm going to call this one good, move on. I will clean that little cable and see if that comes back to life. If not, I'm just going to put a new cable on it. And it'll be good to go. Thanks for watching, as always. And we'll see you on the next one. I have a Gyrus coming up. Another Konami board. Stern/Konami, I should say. And that one has basically no video sprites. So it's a video issue. Now this one's good to go. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next. Not so fast. Not so fast. It actually did start the sound flake out again. So I am going to remove the Z80. I'm going to put a socket in there, and I am going to use the fluke to check the RAM and the ROM path. Because when it does flake out, if I jump a 2114 over the RAMs, it stops the flaking out. I think I might have a bad RAM. We're going to check that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this Z80. And yes, I did switch back to my lead solder. The lead-free solder just doesn't flow. It doesn't flow good enough, especially if you're going to desolder chips or solder chips into the board and stuff. You need something that really flows and wicks fast. And I just don't like the lead-free for that. The key is move around. Don't stay in one spot. You're heating one spot of the chip up. Move from side to side, front to back, and be quick. This is a ground lag. Really get that good. Okay, now that looks good. So there is the Z80 removed. Okay. Good. And we always take care of our desoldering gun. Give it some fresh solder. Give it a little cleaning. Very good. Some more fresh solder. Another cleaning. That's very good. A little clean off. And turn it off. This is ready to go for the next time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and solder in a socket. And we'll put the fluke to it. Okay, so I have done a long ram test on this board. And as you can see, it passed just fine. So I don't think this board is the problem. I think the problem is on the main other board, the main CPU board, in sending cues to this guy, I think is what the problem is. So I think I'm going to, this other board also has the Z80 soldered into the board, so I'm going to have to remove that. I'm not going to film it this time. I'm going to have to remove the Z80 from the other board and put a socket in there so that I can take control of that board with the fluke and start trying to figure out what is going on. Why is it sending errant cues to this thing to start it up and all that? Try to pinpoint what's going on. Okay, now I have the fluke running this board. And I'm monitoring the power, just making sure I'm at 5 volts, nice and smooth. And so far, so good. I've only had it running it for a couple of minutes. I want to see if this thing, with my fluke running it, if this thing is getting the same cues to the soundboard to make it flake out, because I removed this guy, and I don't know, you can tell it has some corrosion. You see how it's kind of green? It's got corrosion on this thing, and I don't know if it seeped into this and this is a flaky chip. That's what I'm going to see. I'm going to leave the fluke on this thing for about a half hour maybe and see how it runs. Maybe do a few games here and there just to hear the sounds, and then let it go through and go back to a tract and see what's going on, because I'm thinking that this thing is getting false cues, and I don't know if it's from this guy or it's something to do with this board, I believe. I think is what the problem is. So hopefully it's just this guy. We'll see. I'll report back. What I have done is I did some analyzing on the queuing section, or whatever you want to call it. There's a 244, a 259, a 367, which I replaced the 367 because I thought it was bad. And in reality, what I did was I was acting as if this was pin 1, and pin 1's over here. I was analyzing it as if it was This was the pin one side, and it's not. So I was way off. Anyway, everything on here looked good. I couldn't find anything looking funky on here, so I decided what I am going to do is process of elimination. And I removed both of the sound processors, the AY38910s, both of them, and I socketed them. And I was doing one at a time. And I put one in right here and immediately heard this. This is demo. I'm not that familiar with Time Pilot. And I immediately noticed that this sound is different from what I've heard out of this board. This demo part. It's more of a high pitch. And honestly, I'll let you hear what I was used to hearing. Let me turn it off. I'm going to remove this guy. And hopefully without breaking it. Okay, I'm going to put this one in, because this one was originally in this spot. Okay. Now I'll fire it back up. This one is what I was used to hearing for this demo. You'll hear the difference right away. Hear it? It's kind of tinny. It's totally different. The other one is more of a higher pitched chirpy sound, not so tinny. But this is what I was used to hearing, and this is what I thought was normal. Now I'm going to turn this down, and I'm going to turn, I got Time Pilot up right now. This is MAME. I'm going to turn it up. Hear it? It's that same high-pitched, chirpy sound. And that loud bang. This guy's no good. This processor is no good. Hear that? Yeah, hear that? That just does not sound right. And this is the processor that does this. I ran this with this chip in that spot for about 30 minutes and it did not flake out. This one's no good. So I'm going to kill it. Go ahead and remove this guy again. And I've already wrote bad on it. So I'm going to grab another one of these, which I do have a couple, and put them in there and let it run for about an hour. I have a new sound processor chip in the board here. This is the other one that was here that was good, and then I have my bad one right here. This board set is now complete and good to go. Looking good, sounding good. We'll go ahead and 1, 2, 3, 4. Music. Got the music. We already know the fire sound is good. It's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and reset it. And my reset is turning it off and turning it back on. So that's it for this one, guys. I appreciate you watching, hanging out with me. Got ourselves a nice working time pilot now. So if you like this kind of stuff, these repairs and little board work, electronics type stuff, go ahead and subscribe, give me a like, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one, guys. I got another Konami board coming up. Another Centuri Konami board, Gyrus, coming up.